Rich Ting. All right, that was some intense stuff we saw there, and definitely you're one of my favorite actors. I have to ask you though, did you always know you want to be an actor?
Yeah, first I want to say, hey everyone, how's it going? Thank you for having me, I appreciate it. Always wanted to come to Stanford.
There you go, welcome to Stanford.
Here we are. Yeah, appreciate it. It's a little far. I prefer the West Coast, but yeah, acting I think was always in my personal kind of fantasy world. For those of people that know me well, I was raised an athlete just because I think my parents were so Americanized. They really pushed the athletics over the academics for me, and that left no room for the arts or the theatrical world when I was young. But you know, growing up, when I grew up, seeing people like obviously Bruce Lee, and you know our limited representation back then, I think it always drew my curiosity to ask questions. Like, why aren't we more present? Where are people like myself? Where are people like the people I went to school with and like people I grew up with? Like, where are we? You know, so that was always in the back of my head growing up. And so never thought I'd pursue it full time though, as a professional career, so.
We pursued it and you got a lot of visibility. I'm gonna have to ask this question on behalf of a lot of the beauty queens here. Are you married?
Oh yeah, happily. My wife is right here, not paying attention.
You are one lucky man,
Thank
and
you.
she's one lucky woman.
I always joke. He asked me before, and I was like, "Where were you like 10 years ago?" You know what I mean? 'Cause I got married really late, and I was like, "Oh, I don't think I'm ever gonna get married." So
I don't think there's any danger in that.
I found her, or she found me, or whatever.
Absolutely gorgeous and beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So now, you're not just your typical actor. You lived the Asian life and then began acting because you went to Yale and you got an MBA and a JD on top of that. So tell me what that journey was like before you even entertained the world of entertainment.
Is that the Asian life?
Yes.
Okay.
Or at least it's the expected one.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing in my life that's been consistent is kind of the not knowing, right? And kind of just going with the flow to a certain extent. Like you mentioned, I did graduate from Yale University, but that was motivated. The first motivation in college was actually to play football.
Okay.
And so I actually I actually accepted a scholarship to Stanford back in the 90s when Coach Tyrone Willingham was here. And he had recruited me very heavily, and I was very excited. Having gone to high school in San Francisco and my parents live in Woodside, I was like, Palo Alto is perfect, you know? So it's good to be here right now. But that was the first goal, you know, was Pac-10 football back then. That's how old I am, whatever. But when the Ivy Leagues came up, you know, obviously I was able to be recruitable to a school like Stanford University. So that was something that my parents always kind of said was given. You're going to do well in school. Let's focus on the other avenues like sports and athletics. And so, fortunately for me, I felt very comfortable that I would be attending Stanford to play football. And then, ironically, all the Ivy League schools came after me. And so I had never had any intention to go east. The joke was, before Stanford, I really wanted to play at UCLA just because of being in Westwood, and I really love that area down in LA. And so when Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, UPenn, Dartmouth, Brown, whatever, I kind of was very spoiled, but at 17, 18 years old, I didn't really understand what that meant. You know what I mean? Because I was more of a, for lack of vocabulary, I was more of a meathead back then. And so I just football is life, you know, and I'm going to go to Stanford and screw Cal and all that stuff, right? And, let's just do this. And so when the Ivy Leagues came out, it was pretty much my mom, and they didn't really pressure me. It was my mom who was like, we're never going to move to the East Coast.
Okay.
We're not going to have this opportunity for you to experience another part of the U.S., let alone an Ivy League kind of demographic and landscape, right? So long story short, I go to Yale, and I quickly regretted it because New Haven, Connecticut is a lot different than Palo Alto, California. So, but it made me, I think it was the best choice for me because I felt so alone. and I felt so out of place. And I realized real quick how proud I was to be a West Coast Asian American from the Bay Area.
Ooh, all right.
So, yeah. I was kind of a rare species, not only at Yale, but on the football team as well. I didn't understand a lot of people there. A lot of people didn't understand me. But that's adversity, and I faced a lot of that. Everyone thinks, Yale, Stanford, Cal, UC, whatever it is, like, oh, academically, we all use the same books. Actually, Yale, the professors are all international, so you can't really even understand them in a lecture, so you're more at a disadvantage when you go to that kind of school, unless you know Russian or some other kind of language like that. So to me, it wasn't that the adversity was in the classroom. The adversity was literally in the physical environment, with the kind of peers I was with, and the fact that it snows and you still have to go to class, like that sucks, you know what I mean? So those are the hard parts of adjusting, but like I said, I felt really alone, and that quickly matured my spoiled self, having come from this area with this demographic and my upbringing here. And I was forced to do my pre-med requirements, even though I was a history major, which I absolutely love. My father's an orthopedic surgeon, so there's that. And I'm the eldest of the family, so there's that. And once again, I didn't know what I wanted to do after Yale, let alone freshman year, what I wanted to major in or whatever. And things just kind of fell into place. When I graduated, I wanted to pursue something still in the athletic and possibly media world, just because I was always drawn to that. And now the fact that I had finished all my eligibility, I graduated, I had a lot of free time. And so ironically, back then, ESPN was only headquartered in Bristol, Connecticut. And now they're headquartered both in LA and in Bristol now. And I applied and I got a production job at the ESPN headquarters, which is only like a 40-minute drive from campus. So I spent my 5th year out there working as a production person at ESPN in Bristol. And that was fantastic. I was very interested in pursuing sports journalism. Quickly found out through all my interactions with Stuart Scott, Scott Van Pelt, Dan Patrick, Chris Berman, how they came up, them being the elite at the time, and they still are. And I just didn't connect with it. I was like, I don't know if that's me. And so I spent the rest of my 1 year at ESPN applying to law school and business school, because I said, well, at least I can buy myself some more time. And I don't want to do medicine, so I'll do everything else. And I can do this joint thing and get it over with. And that's what motivated me to pursue a joint JD MBA. So that's how that kind of unfolded. Again, it was never planned from the beginning. I'm not going to sit here and lie and be like, well, when I was 16, I really wanted to do this. It was just every year I just kept focusing on kind of in the moment on what I wanted to do then. And just, I think, an excuse to just prolong my time so I could hopefully figure out what I would eventually want to do later in life.
You mentioned something here that I really want to touch on, and it seems to resonate with me, and I love how you created a philosophy out of it, and I hope that people here can absorb it. But it's like the sense of, you turn the sense of unknown from something that was to be fearful into something that to be excited about.
Right.
Tell me about that. I love that.
Yeah. So I speak on this, when I speak to, especially I think high school and college, that demographic, because I feel that from my own experience, there's this intense pressure you get from your environment. And what I mean by that is, like, when I went to Yale, I remember my first, we're there early because of football before the rest of the student body comes in. And then once the regular students come in and we're in a class and I'm trying to figure out my curriculum that's required, I'm hearing, I want a summer at this firm, I want a summer at this consulting place. My dad owns a floor or works the floor at JP Morgan, and I'm gonna be there in 2 years, and I'm just like hearing all this chatter, and I have no idea what any of that means. It's just noise. I'm trying to figure out history, American studies, math, language requirement, right? And so right there, there's a sense of insecurity, and you're so vulnerable at the age of 18, because I'm not from the East Coast. I'm juggling a full athletic schedule with academics, and now I'm surrounded by all valedictorians. Everyone around me is a valedictorian, just the #1 academically from their school. and they seem like they have their whole life planned out. And so quickly, that was a different kind of intimidation I've never really experienced before, you know. And I remember just feeling very confused and not knowing what I needed to do, and I couldn't relate to my peers. And so, you know, as time goes on, I finally started understanding what was going on. Like, oh, people, you know, they intern, and I didn't even know what that was really about. And so, what I say is, a lot of my friends that graduated that had this like layout, they had this whole plan. I don't think any of them eventually followed it, is my point. And to me, wow, they were the ones that were so confident. You know, shout out to them because, you know, props because, you know, they somewhat knew what they wanted to do. But I also support the people like myself who don't know what they wanted to do, right? And so what I've come to embrace is this notion of embracing and celebrating the unknown. Because I believe when you don't know, you ask questions. And when you ask questions, you start to observe more. You know, and I brought this philosophy to actually my acting, you know, and into life. And also to like being an attorney if I went that way. And what I mean by that is, you know, you have to educate yourself with enough information for you to live, okay? But that doesn't mean you have to know all the answers. And I almost feel that if you say you know, you're almost cornering yourself before you even get started. And what I mean by that, it's like if I go, so let me relate that to my work as an artist and to maybe if I went into law. If I go into a scene and I've never worked with you, right?
Right.
And we're on set and everyone's there and I go, I know how this scene's gonna go because I'm prepared. I know everything that's gonna happen. That's impossible. And what I'm doing is I'm already narrowing my limit, I'm limiting my limitations, if that makes sense. Just like if you go into a case and you're like, I know this case. I know what the defendant's gonna say. I know what the opposition's say. I know it. They go left, I'm going left. They go right, I'm going right. Right? And I feel like that's a trap. Because if I'm so focused on this game plan that I have for you, and all of a sudden you go that way, and I was like, you weren't supposed to go there. You're supposed to go that way. Now you just threw me off. And now I'm at the disadvantage. So what I always say is the one thing I learned in law school is that it's not about just knowing the black letter law, right? But you got to be able to apply it to a variety of hypotheticals, right? It's not just, oh, I know the law. It's like, okay, you know the law, you know the statutes, you know what this court ruled, you know what that jurisdiction ruled, you know what this judge said. Now let's talk about this case, right? And that's how I approach my acting, which is I go into a scene, and this sounds weird, I go into a scene not knowing so I can discover. Because the minute I stop thinking, I observe. And the minute I start observing, I let the environment come to me. And all of a sudden, and that's where the magic happens. Because it may not be scripted, right? The lines are written. We say the lines. But what makes a scene that much better? It's when the mundane comes out. It's when all these little gems come out that we couldn't really plan for. And the cool thing is when that camera's rolling and you didn't plan for a moment, it got that moment. You know, so the hard thing is to replicate that moment when the director's like, I love that, let's do it again from this angle, right? So what I've been able to embrace throughout my career as an artist is celebrating the unknown. Because a lot of the unknowns, people don't know that you didn't know. They actually are like, that's awesome, like that's so cool how you did that. Explain to me how that happened. I said, oh, I didn't even know that was gonna happen. And that's kind of like the outline of my life. I didn't know I'd be sitting here at Stanford talking to you about me being an artist and doing all these things. You know what I'm saying? So my parents always installed just the work ethic, right? Which is the foundation to, I think, any career. So keep the work ethic, but be able to be adjustable and celebrate the unknown. Because it's almost like a meditation for me. When I don't know, like another example is like when I go to foreign countries. Like I worked in Korea for a good 4 to 5 years early in my career. And I remember I went to Korea, and I'm not Korean. I didn't speak the language. And I remember I just used to sit in certain areas and certain coffee shops and stuff, and I would observe because I don't know, literally. There's nothing I can do but observe. And that's when I started observing body language, mannerism, etiquette, 2 guys having a coffee, guy and a girl on a date having a coffee, married couple having a coffee, 2 grandparents having a coffee, right? And I let all that inspiration and all that affects me and I'm able to transform that into a character, you know, and I do the same thing. I go to China, I go to Japan, I go to Vietnam, you know what I mean? I even go to different parts of the US, you know? And to me, it is meditation because I don't think, I just observe. And through that, you discover. And I feel like that's a kind of a very symbolic kind of analysis of my life, to be honest.
I love that, and I can totally see how that works, say, in a case in your artistic work. How can somebody who's young, starting out and still under the expectation of their parents, explain to them, let's celebrate the unknown together?
Right. Well, I think now is a better time, just because, like, we have friends that are parents now. That makes me feel old. We don't have kids, we have dogs. And I like to have faith in our generation. Okay. You know what I mean? And it's happening. A lot of my friends who have kids, you know, they'll show them Uncle Rich and some of my PG-13 stuff or whatever. And they're inspired, and the parents, knowing me, are already a little bit more open-minded. Okay. You know, because it's our generation now. We're not, you know, so-called, like, I'm a little different in the sense where I'm fourth generation, so my parents are very Americanized. You know, they had already broken away from the culture, so to speak, and they dealt with stuff with their parents, right? So I think that conversation's a little easier to have these days, from what I'm seeing with my peers that have kids that want to pursue the arts, want to pursue things outside the traditional Asian life, as you put it, right?
Right. What are some things that you have, because now you're so successful already right now, but do you have visions in the future for like directorship or production, or are you already doing it right now?
I am producing right now, and creating and writing and doing stuff like that. There are some things that are coming out, which is exciting, that we can't announce quite yet, but I think that goes hand in hand, which is kind of the person I am. You know, I kind of like what I just kind of went over, like not knowing, right? You know, the first is you just want to be a working actor. You know what I'm saying? So whether it's a guest star or recurring or series, you just want to work, you know? And so fortunately for me, I've been able to create a resume and to show somewhat of my range. You know, I'm always pursuing to show more. But with that, and just I think with my maturity and my networking within the industry in Hollywood, other opportunities have come up. You know, things like voiceover stuff, which I never thought I would. I joke with my wife all the time, like I'm a voiceover actor, you know, because like the schedule is so crazy right now with video games, animations, and stuff like that. I never pursued that. If anything, that kind of came to me, you know, and so as well as the producing. Directing eventually. I'm a little too selfish and like creating and being in front of the camera and bringing words to life and characters to life. I'm not ready to be that coach yet, that director coach, you know. So maybe later in my career, but.
For some people here in the audience who really wanted to see you, what do you need, and how do you break into acting? Like, this is something that there's no blueprint, there's no instruction book, right?
Right.
Especially as an Asian.
Yeah, right. It is getting better though. We are seeing more visibility. I'm proud to be a part of that wave, and hopefully creating space and opportunity for the younger generation. I mean, that's obviously one of my goals. To tangent for a second, you know, I always say, I hope my friends' kids grow up and are confused why we have this whole representation conversation.
Yes.
That's my goal.
Yes.
Because we're going to be so present when they grow up that it's like, why do they keep talking about how there's a lack of, or Asian males and masculinity and the way women are portrayed and all this other stuff that we've had to, like, you know, challenge in these ceilings, right? As far as breaking into the industry or giving advice to like the younger generation about this, it's really no different than anything else, any other career. And what I mean by that is you have to go to class. You have to graduate. You have to take tests. Everything you learn in school is applicable to the Hollywood industry as an actor. You know, a lot of people think it is glamorized in one aspect, but the other aspect is that it's like any other job. And the people that are successful in it is because they approach it like any other job. I think people that get caught up with the fame and the glam and the limelight, they're not an overnight, but they're like a one-hit wonder. You know what I mean? It's like they'll hit big and then they kind of like, you kind of don't see them for a while and they kind of like disappear, you know? The thing is you got to be accountable. You got to have time management skills. You got to have self-discipline. You got to have perseverance. You got to be able to overcome adversities over and over again. And so when I say it like that, that's life. You know what I mean? So if someone's like, you know, what do I need to do to get into acting? It's like literally graduate from high school, graduate from college, experience life, know what it's like to start something and finish it. You know what I mean? Because the one pet peeve I have is, I mean, this is back in the day again when like American Idol was taking off, right? Is everyone's like, you know, and I'm, you know, this is just my opinion and I don't mean to offend anyone, right? But I used to get kind of irritated with this notion that, you know, I dropped out of high school, I didn't go to college, I've been arrested for possession, I left my family, I'm gonna go to Hollywood and be a star. It's like, what? Like, how does that even work? And then unfortunately, I mean, fortunately for some people, there's a show called American Idol, where it would glamorize this opportunity for one in I don't know how many million to become an overnight or, you know, over a course of a season on the show, celebrity. But then you look at how many of those winners actually went on and had longevity, right? So my point to all that is, to be an actor in Hollywood, you gotta finish. You got to be accountable. It's like anything else. Whether I'm a lawyer, I'm a banker, I'm a doctor, you know, we're technically in the service industry. You know, as an artist,
wow,
I serve all of you. I serve the writers. I serve the studio. You know what I mean? Like, in a weird way, we're a very glamorized servant. You know what I'm saying? So when I think of that, that's very humbling. Yeah. You know, unless I'm the studio exec and I'm the owner, like I own Paramount, like then maybe I can have an attitude, you know what I mean? But until then, it's like I'm a servant, you know what I mean? So I think, you know, on the technical side of how you break in, you know, I always encourage everyone. I'm currently in a studio, like I train all the time, get into an acting class, you know, whatever methodology or whatever foundation is, just get in there, be inspired by your peers, talk to people, learn how to take direction. That's another big thing. As an athlete, you know, and then I'm gonna date myself, but as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old playing Pop Warner football in the Bay Area, you know, I've been kicked and hit by grown men who just got out of jail, you know what I mean? Who are calling me a lot of obscenities that I didn't even know what they meant. I'd ask my mom after practice, like, what does this mean? You know what I mean? And so I've been used to getting kicked and punched and yelled at, you know? So when I now mature, I like to flex that I'm actually super coachable. I'm super directable, you know? Like, I will adjust and I will do what is best for this whole team, whether that's a physical, like sporting a team, or if that's like literally a film team, you know, connected to Amazon or Netflix or whatever it is. And I think that's one of the most valuable things that naturally I've brought to the table without knowing it, is the fact that my athletic background has allowed me to be a team player and has allowed me to take criticism as much as we get it in the business. You know, because I feel like a lot of artists who come up who don't experience the athletic side of life, when someone goes, you suck, you're slow, you're not strong enough, you know, get your together, right? They can't really take that. To me, I'm like, I've been hearing it my whole life, you know what I mean? Yeah. I've been hearing everything my whole life. I've been criticized my whole life. So now I get on set, I'm like, well, I'm here. Like, you can criticize all you want, but I'm here. I'm getting paid for this, you know what I mean? So I think that's another valuable thing that I would tell like a younger generation is like experience life, because all that life, academically, athletically, family, personal, outside, you need to bring that to your characters that you're gonna eventually be playing.
I'm hearing so much words of wisdom here. One, the unknown is actually a superpower. Yeah. Number two, everything in life is to your advantage. There's actually nothing wasted, as long as you understand and absorb it and process it. And three, that work ethic, right? If you're gonna do something, do it to the best ability. Is there anything else that you can convey to us and any last words of wisdom to this next generation or even the current generation of as they go forward and pursue their dreams?
I mean, who am I, man? You know what
You're
I'm
Rich
saying?
Ting.
I know, but like, at first it makes me feel really old. Like, I'm like, got all this wisdom. Like, I don't know if I like that question. You know, I would just say, I think the thing that's kind of guided me is you just gotta love what you do, you know? And in that whole embracing the unknown, one of the lessons from that is there's no rush. If you're doing what you need to be doing, there's no rush. If you're not doing what you need to be doing, there's a rush, okay? So anyone that's lazy, that's like, oh no, he said don't rush. Like, I'm not talking to you, okay? I'm talking to the people that are, you know, are doing everything they possibly can, and maybe they're not seeing that light yet.
Okay.
The light will appear, but the more important thing, longevity, is to find something that you absolutely love. Way easier said than done.
Yeah.
Took me, I found my love of this craft, I think at the age of 27, which to me was really late, because I was around people that knew what they wanted to do at the age of 17. So technically I might have been 10 years late. But those people that thought they found their love at 17 have now switched careers multiple times, and I haven't. I've chosen one path and I've stuck to it, and the thing I like to always say is, I'm in this industry so I can play a 90-year-old character when I'm 90 years old, right? And because what else are we gonna do?
Right.
You know, my dad isn't someone who has ever talked too much about retirement, which is kind of sad because he's still working and he enjoys it. The one thing I've gotten from him is that he's found what loves to do. And when he's not doing what he loves to do, he doesn't know what to do, you know? And so that's been very impactful to me, which is, you know, I've worked so hard to get this momentum and to get this visibility and get these platforms. Why would I ever want to turn that off anytime soon? You know what I mean? And so, and again, I'm excited where we are going as a community. I believe I'm at the forefront of this wave, and I would love to see how big we can get this thing. And so I have no desire to leave anytime soon, you know? So my words of wisdom is just find what you love, commit to it. The money will come. You will have to sacrifice, but all that adversity and sacrifice is gonna be gold to you when you need to pull from it, you know? Because everything, whether it's Warrior, whether it's Jackie Ming, whether it's, I think you showed like a partner track clip. I mean, I'm pulling from every part of my journey, you know? And there's not too many people that know me like from 8 years old to now. And so when I meet people and they're like, how did you get into that character? It's like, you didn't know me in high school. You know what I mean? And then, oh, you didn't know me in college. And you didn't know me in, you know, my 20s. And so all those experiences have paid off. So just know that you're training when you don't think you're training, especially if you want to be an artist. Because everything, as we say in my actor studio, everything works, literally. Everything works. And that might be kind of hard to comprehend, but it's so simple. But when you think about it, literally everything works. So
I love that.
I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Rich Ting.
Appreciate it.
Amazing.
That makes sense.